Okay, so here I am in Visual Studio, and what I'm going to do is select Create New Project, and what I want to do is make a Windows Form App .NET framework. So there's all sorts of different projects, types of projects you can make with Visual Studio, but we want a Form App .NET framework, and then I'm going to click Next. And what I'm going to do, I need to specify the name for my project. Don't leave it as Windows Form App 1 or Untitled 1 or whatever, because it makes it impossible for me to figure out what this thing is when I go trying to grade it. Now, in this example, we're going to call this message box, and we need to be careful here so we don't run into a problem later. I'm going to call it message box MSG, not the whole thing, I'm not going to spell out the word message, because there's a command message box that we're going to need later, and if our project name matches the name of that command, we're going to run into an issue. So I'm just going to call this message box MSG box. Now for the location, if you haven't done this already, click on the Browser tab and select your C# folder out on your X drive. And that way, every time you create a new project, Visual Studio will put it there, and then you don't ever have to worry about turning anything in. You can just say in Schoology that it's done, and I'll be able to see your work on the X drive. So set this path to be your submit folder on your X drive. And then I'm going to click Create. And I should see an interface that looks like this, or you should see an interface that looks like this. If you don't see the toolbox, you can get to the toolbox here on the View menu. You come down to the View and then select Toolbox, and it will pull up the toolbox. If you don't see the Properties window right here, you can right-click on the form and select Properties, and the Properties will pop up. This window right here is called the Solution Explorer, and if you don't see that, you should be able to there's a way to get that selected as well. I just can't remember. Oh, there it is, Solution Explorer right there. So these are windows that you can pop up. It's very easy to close a window and not know how to get it back. So if that happens, just let me know and I'll help you out here. All right, so here's the form for our project. And when I click on a control, I have the properties for that control at the bottom right here. So notice there's a text property, and if I change that, I'm going to change the text property. You can see now that we've changed the text on that box. And there's other properties too. There's a background color, background image. We're not going to really do much with that right now. Now let's put a control on this form right here. So let me put a button. I'm going to drag a button over to the form. And now the properties that I'm seeing are the properties for that button. So see, there's the location right there. As I move the button around, the location changes. If I want to change the text on the button, I can go in and change the text property. Change it to say Click Me. Is there like a font property on that button? There is, right? If I don't like that font, I can come in here and change the font and make it bigger. Of course, then I have to make the button a little bit bigger. Now, let's make a function that handles this button being clicked. So if I double click on this button, Visual Studio will create a function for me to respond to this button being clicked. So what we've got here, the namespace, that's the wrapper for our project. And then within our project, we have objects, and those objects are called classes. So there's a class called Form1. That's our Form1 object. And then within that object, we have the functions, the things that this form knows how to do. So when we double-click on a control, Visual Studio will add a function for us to that class. Now, to get a message box to pop up, all I have to do is say messagebox.show. Stop that. Semicolon, right? So statements end with semicolons. There we go. And so now if I click on this button, it says stop that. There you go. All right, so that's event-driven programming, right? We put we can put controls on our forms and we double click on them, and then the designer of Visual Studio will create a function for us to handle that type of event. Now, what other events are there? What else does could the button possibly do? Well, that's what the lightning bolt here is for. And if I click on this lightning bolt, there's all sorts of other events that I could put on this button. So let's for mouse enter here. Watch this. I'll double click on that, and maybe I'll take this message box code and I'll put it over here. I'll say go away. Go away. Now if I run this, and you see as soon as I hover the mouse over that, it says go away. All right, so let's work on this just a little bit more. For the button here, I'm gonna delete off this thing, and if I hit the dot operator, the dot operator like shows me the properties and functions that are in an object. You can see that this message box object has a show function. So if I double click on that, now notice it'll autocomplete. Now notice this is 1 of 21. There's 21 different ways to use this message box show function, and I can pass in different types of parameters, and it will do different things for me. This is called function overloading. There are many different versions of this function that I can use. Now there's the one I had before, it just took the one parameter, and that was the text to display. But I could say something like, do you want to quit? And I'll say, quit. This is the title on the dialog box, and then I can also say, now notice all this help I'm getting. Message box buttons. It wants a message box buttons object, and if I go into there, you can see there's a yes, no. These are different types of message boxes I can pop up. So I can, if I want a yes, no dialog box, I can select that. So let's run that and see what happens. I click on the button. Oh, I really want to get rid of that go away thing. Let me comment that out. So comments, double slashes in C# and Java, also C++. And if I click on that, it says, do you really want to quit, yes or no? Now, how do I capture the result of that? Well, if I hover over this, you can see it returns, the return type is dialog results. So it's going to return me some sort of dialog result thing. So let's say dialog result. I'm going to call it result. So what I'm doing is I'm making a dialog result object called result, and then setting it equal to whatever this thing gives me back. And then I can test it with an if statement. Now to write an if statement, I just need to type if and hit tab twice, and Visual Studio will write it out for me. And if I type in else and hit tab twice, I'll get an else block. So now I can test the result of this. So the result equals, it's even highlighting it for me. Dialog result dot yes. Is there a yes in there? Okay. So if the person, you click the yes button, then maybe I'll quit my program here. Application.exit. So this is stuff, this is something you can commit to memory if you want. We're not really going to use it that much, but if you want to pop up a yes-no dialog, there's also other types of dialog boxes you can pop up. Yes, no, cancel, retry, cancel, okay, all right, abort, retry, ignore, all right. So we'll just leave it as okay, cancel. No, wait. Yes, no. And if we say yes, then it will kill our program. So let's try that. You want to quit? Yes. Okay. All right, now one other thing. I can put in breakpoints. If I click on a line of code here and hit F9, see how I get the circle right there? That's a breakpoint. My program will stop when it gets there. So now it's going to, and then to walk through my program, I can hit F10. So F9 to stop, F10 to walk through my program. Pops up the message box, do you want to quit? Yes. So what was the result? The result was yes. Is that equal to yes? It is. So now I'm going to enter my curly braces and quit. So there we go. There's how to create a form project, how to set your path, how to get the toolbox up. There's view toolbox, how to set breakpoints using F9 and F10, and how to build a little program.